All right, get ready, because we're diving deep today into the world of Neville Goddard and his teachings on manifestation. We're going to be looking at this YouTube lecture of his called Powerful Lecture of Neville Goddard, How to Manifest Your Desires Before They Appear. Ever have those moments where you're like, whoa, I have way more power to shape my life than I thought?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're going for today, exploring radical ideas like living in the end and how powerful belief can be even without evidence. And to help me unpack all of this is our expert.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Neville Goddard's work is definitely a game changer. Really makes you rethink how we create our own reality.
It does. So something that really stood out to me in this lecture was, well, the idea that our awareness, it isn't just passively observing.
Right.
It's actually driving our experiences. Like what we focus on, what we believe, it all ends up shaping the reality that we live in.
That's exactly it. Awareness is dynamic. Think of it like a sculptor
Wow.
with a block of clay. Their awareness is what guides their hands, right?
Yeah.
Shaping that clay into something new. We're doing the same thing, but with our lives. Constantly molding our experiences based on where our attention is.
So if we're always shaping our reality with our awareness, even unconsciously, what happens when we start directing it with intention? Instead of just reacting, we actually focus our awareness on the life we want to create.
That's when things get really interesting. Goddard suggests that we should be consciously directing our awareness toward that state of being we want, even if it hasn't shown up in our physical reality yet. It's about aligning our inner world with the outer world that we want to experience.
Okay, but how? It's easy to say, focus on what you want, but our minds wander, especially when life gets crazy.
Right. It's not always easy. Our minds, they tend to focus on the negative or what's missing. The key is to just gently redirect your attention back to what you want over and over again. It's like training a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger it gets.
It's like building that mental habit, focusing on what we want, not on what we don't. And it makes me think of another key concept, the power of imagination. Goddard's not just talking about daydreaming. He's saying that imagination is the actual blueprint for our reality. Everything we experience, it all started as an idea.
Exactly. Think about it. The car you drive, the house you live in, even the relationships you have, all of those things first existed as thoughts. In someone's mind, someone had to imagine them first before they could become real.
Wow, that's kind of mind-blowing when you really think about it. So it's not just passively imagining things. Goddard talks about vivid imagination and believing that what we imagine is actually possible.
Right.
Why is that so important?
Well, because that combination sends a powerful message to our subconscious mind. It's like planting a seed in fertile ground. That seed, nourished by belief, starts to grow and eventually shows up in our reality.
So it's like we're giving our subconscious mind instructions on what we want to create. And this brings up a question for you, dear listener. Think about your own life. What are you always imagining? Consciously, unconsciously. Are those thoughts and images aligned with what you really want in life? Or are they holding you back?
That's a really good question to think about.
Yeah.
We often go through life on autopilot, right? Not realizing how powerful our imagination is. But once we become aware of it, we can start to consciously choose those thoughts and images that support what we want.
We're like the directors of our own mental movies. We get to choose what plays on the screen. But Goddard doesn't stop at imagination. He goes further and talks about feeling. He says imagination is the blueprint, but feeling is the fuel. It's what bridges the gap between our thoughts and what we actually experience.
Right. Simply wishing for something, it isn't enough. We have to actually feel the emotions associated with having it. This is where a lot of people get stuck with manifestation. They overthink it, but don't connect emotionally.
Like that saying, you have to feel it to heal it, right? Applies to manifesting too. Goddard uses the example of wanting financial abundance. He says, if you want financial security, you have to feel the relief, the freedom, the confidence that comes with having that security. And you have to feel it even before the money shows up.
Exactly. It's about stepping into the vibration, the feeling of what you want.
It seems counterintuitive, though. We're so used to feeling based on what's happening around us, based on what we can see and touch. But Goddard is saying we need to flip the script. We need to feel the desired reality first, and then let that feeling shape our experiences.
That's the key. It's powerful.
Okay, so I've got awareness, imagination, and feeling. Those are some pretty big pieces of the puzzle. But there's another layer. Goddard talks about the power of assumptions. He says that those deeply held assumptions we have, they act like filters, shaping how we see and interact with the world. They actually become self-fulfilling prophecies.
It's fascinating how our assumptions shape our reality. He gives a great example in the lecture. If you assume that opportunities are scarce, you're going to unconsciously behave in ways that block abundance. You're going to miss opportunities because your actions reflect that belief.
So it's not just thinking positive thoughts, it's about going deeper, examining those underlying beliefs and assumptions, the ones that drive our thoughts and actions, realizing that our inner world is constantly creating our outer world.
Exactly, and that brings us to one of the most challenging concepts: belief before evidence. Goddard says that belief has to come first. We have to believe even when there's no proof yet.
Like taking a leap of faith, believing in the unseen, trusting that things are working behind the scenes even if it doesn't look like it right now.
He talks about belief being magnetic. When we hold a strong belief in something, we start attracting people, resources, circumstances, all aligning with that belief.
So we become a magnet for what we believe to be true. And that leads us to another fascinating idea: living in the end. What does that actually mean?
Goddard describes it as really immersing yourself in the feeling of having already achieved your goal. It's about feeling fulfilled now, rather than waiting for things to happen.
It's so easy to fall into that trap, waiting for things to change before we allow ourselves to feel happy or successful. But Goddard is saying that waiting actually delays things.
He uses the example of wanting a loving relationship. Instead of focusing on not having a partner and feeling lonely, he suggests imagining, feeling the joy of already being in that relationship.
But isn't that wishful thinking? Like, how can you actually feel the joy of something that's not real yet? Wouldn't that be delusional?
It's not about denying reality. It's about consciously choosing to align your thoughts and feelings with the reality that you want. Remember, feelings are powerful creators.
So we're not pretending that things are different. We're choosing to focus our attention and energy on the feelings we want to experience, and trusting that those feelings will eventually manifest in the physical world.
Exactly. It's about releasing resistance, trusting, and allowing things to unfold.
This is all so incredibly powerful, and there's still so much more to unpack in Goddard's teachings. We'll continue this deep dive in part 2, where we'll explore surrender, persistence, and how all these concepts help us manifest our deepest desires.
You know, it's interesting how Goddard says that surrendering to the process isn't about giving up on our desires.
Right. It's more like letting go of how things should happen.
Exactly. Like trusting that the universe, or our subconscious mind, has a bigger plan than we can imagine. And that ties in with another principle Goddard talks about: persistence.
He makes it clear that just visualizing or feeling our desired reality once isn't enough.
He uses the example of a gardener, right? You wouldn't plant a seed and then just walk away, expecting it to sprout overnight. You have to nurture it, water it.
So we have to give our desires that same kind of attention.
And live as if they're already facts, even when things around us don't look like it.
Right, and when those doubts come in, we got to redirect our thoughts back to feeling fulfilled.
Yeah. Persistence isn't about forcing things. It's more like patience, trust.
Well, resilience.
Yeah. Understanding that setbacks, well, they're just part of it.
They can even guide us towards our goals in a roundabout way.
Exactly. And Goddard points out that being persistent, it actually changes us on the inside.
Like we reprogram our minds with new beliefs and expectations.
And then manifestation becomes almost inevitable.
Because our inner and outer reality are finally aligned. But let's be real, persistence can feel, well, daunting. It's easy to get discouraged when you're not seeing results.
It's something we all struggle with. It's important to remember that, well, this isn't a linear process.
Yeah, it's not about never having doubts. It's more about acknowledging those feelings and then choosing trust and belief.
Exactly. And that's where surrender comes back in. Letting go of the need to control every little thing.
So surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means trusting that the universe has a plan even if we can't see it.
And when we combine surrender and persistence, well, that's when the magic happens. We stop resisting and start allowing.
It's like we're finally getting out of our own way. This whole idea that we can create our reality just by changing our thinking, our feelings, it's pretty powerful.
It is. It puts the responsibility on us.
But it also gives us agency and hope. Like if we don't like something, we have the power to change it.
It starts with taking ownership of our thoughts, beliefs, assumptions.
And committing to being persistent, constantly aligning with what we want to create.
It's not a quick fix. It's a journey, a lifelong journey.
And as we go deeper into Goddard's work, there's so much more to uncover. It challenges what we think we know about reality.
It's like he flips the script on how we see the world.
Something that stood out to me was that everything we want, it's already within us. It's not about chasing things outside, but about recognizing and growing what's already in our imagination, our feelings.
It's about moving from feeling lack to abundance, From believing we have to struggle to knowing we're already whole.
That's the real power, right? Not manipulating the universe, but aligning with its natural laws of creation. And those laws, well, they work through us, through our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs.
Yeah, it's a big shift.
We go from being victims to being creators.
And that's why Goddard's teachings are so important, especially now.
In a world that often feels so out of control,
His work reminds us that we are not powerless.
we're active participants, co-creating with the universe.
And when we understand that, everything changes. Relationships, finances, health, it all starts to reflect that shift.
It's not about being perfect or never having challenges.
It's about having a new relationship with ourselves and the world.
Based on trust, faith, belief in our own creative power.
So to our listener, what's one small step you can take today to embody that power?
It doesn't have to be a big thing. Maybe just choose to focus on gratitude or visualizing your ideal future.
The important thing is to take action, to align with what you want to create.
Because the power to make your dreams real. It's not out there somewhere. It's right here, inside you. It's pretty amazing, right? To think that we have this power to shape our reality through our thoughts and feelings and beliefs.
You know, as we've been talking about all of this, one thing that keeps coming up for me is how important it is to trust the process.
Yeah, like even when you're doing all the quote-unquote right things, visualizing, feeling the emotions, affirming your beliefs, sometimes it feels like nothing's happening.
Exactly. That's when it's easy to fall back into doubt and get frustrated. But Goddard reminds us that manifestation, well, it's not always a straight line. There will be times when you feel like you're taking one step forward, two steps back.
So how do we handle those tough moments? How do we stick with it when we don't see those, immediate results?
Well, I think it goes back to what we were talking about before, surrender and persistence. Surrender isn't about giving up. It's about letting go of the need to control everything. It's about trusting that there's a bigger plan, even if we can't see it.
It's kind of like when you plant a seed, right? You don't dig it up every day to check if it's sprouted. You trust that nature's taking care of it.
Exactly. And persistence is about showing up consistently, even when we don't feel like it, even when you're tired or doubtful. It's like nurturing that seed, watering it, giving it sunlight, trusting that it'll grow.
Having faith in the process, faith in ourselves, faith in those unseen forces, the ones always working for us.
And I think it's also good to remember that manifestation, it's not just about getting specific things. It's also about the journey, about who we become along the way.
Oh, that's so true. It's not just about the destination, right? It's about how much we grow, what we learn, how we change as we move towards our goals.
And sometimes the things that slow us down, those challenges, they actually lead to something even better than we could have imagined.
It's like life is like nudging us onto a path that's more for us, even if we don't get it at the time.
That's why it's important to be open to different possibilities, to trust the journey,
Yeah.
and to remember that we're always being guided towards what's really meant for us.
Well, as we wrap up this deep dive into Neville Goddard, I have to say, it's been a ride. We've explored some really deep ideas: awareness, imagination, feeling, assumption, belief, surrender, persistence, and how they all work together to help us create the lives we want.
And I think, well, the biggest takeaway for me is that we're not just watching our lives happen. We're active creators. We're shaping our reality with our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs.
And we get to choose in every moment. Do we want to create from fear and lack or love and abundance?
Your choice is always there.
So to our listeners, we'll leave you with this. If everything you want is already inside you, what's one belief or one action you can take today to start shaping your reality, to make it match your biggest dreams for yourself?
Remember, the power to create the life you dream of, it's not out there somewhere. It's right here, inside you.
Go make something amazing.